In rural America, treating COVID-19 patients can be especially difficult. People live far from limited medical facilities, and communities are small and isolated. Often, there's a stigma around just getting tested for the virus. Joey Trawick is a registered nurse working in the COVID-19 unit at St. Vincent Healthcare in Billings, Montana. Joey, could you tell us a bit about the situation you face inside St. Vincent right now?
You know, it's sort of an ominous feeling because as you're coming up the hospital elevators or up the stairs, you're seeing signs, do not enter, restricted access. You start realizing you're kind of going into the heart of the beast, if you will, and that last entry, that last door that you come in through, you already have a surgical mask on, obviously, because you can't come into the hospital without one. But the first place that you go to is to go get your N95 and your face shield. And you make your way immediately to, the nurse that needs to leave, that's already been there for 12 hours or more. And you're putting on PPE as you're talking outside the patient room. You're putting on a gown. They're trying to tell you this is the status. This is what we experienced last night. And as you're having this conversation with one person, another nurse is waiting for your attention that had a different patient down the hall. So you're trying to get this conversation rolling and understanding what you need to do for this patient right now. And there's another patient in the room next door that also needs you right now. And it's not just one or two patients, 3 and 4 and 5 patients that need you right now. I had a young man that came to me from the northern Cheyenne tribe. His name was J.D. Old Mouse, and he was my age, late 40s, and he and I did not get along at first because he wanted things to be precise and on time, and I kept telling him we're super stressed. He was the last flute maker for the Northern Cheyenne people, and he and I ended up getting along after several weeks of interacting, and I think I was doing a stretch of 14, 15 shifts in a row, so I had him every day. It wasn't going well. His condition kept deteriorating, and he and I had a conversation before he went down to the ICU, and I said, you're going to get better. He said, no, I don't know that I'm going to make it. And I said, you owe me a flute. You said you were going to make me a flute and teach me how to play it. And he kind of smiled and said, all right, I'll get you a flute. And 2 days later, after he went to the ICU, he passed. And his family actually called me that night and said, Joey, we would like to thank you. And I went to the parking lot of our emergency department, and there were 40 friends and family from the Northern Cheyenne tribe that encircled me and prayed for me in the dark at 9 o'clock at night to thank me. And then they just said, we have to go. We can't stay here because they're escorting his body from the hospital to the funeral home. And I'm just standing there in the dark thinking, what just happened? And a little while later, I got from a total stranger in Arizona a handmade Native American flute called the Sparrowhawk. This guy had just seen and heard of all the things we were going through here in Montana, and he said, I had this flute, someone gave it to me, I haven't ever played it. It crossed my mind that someday I would give it away, and you crossed my mind. I saw your story, and I thought, I know where to send this flute. And I'm looking at it right now. It's in my hands, and I think, if we're waiting for the other half of the country to develop an empathetic response or dramatically change to having compassion for their neighbor, if we're waiting for that, I don't know that we're going to make it. So my job is to have twice as much compassion and twice as much empathy for the people that don't have it and the people that don't think about wearing a mask, for my friend J.D. Old Mouse, right? That is my responsibility, and the responsibility of all of us on the front lines, that we are tenderly, compassionately having to double the amount of compassion and forethought and respect for those lives that we're taking care of, the people that we're seeing that are passing.
You, I understand, are recovering from COVID-19. What were your symptoms, and were you ever hospitalized yourself?
I wasn't hospitalized, but I was down. In fact, I'm still not 100%. Like I said, when you come to the COVID unit, they want you to be at 120%. You hit the ground running. I still feel like I'm operating at 75 or 80%. Even the shower hurt, like standing in the shower, the water hitting my skin. I was shivering in chills, but in a hot shower. Physicians reached out, fellow nurses reached out, and they said, any moment that you don't feel up to it, you don't have to come back. Just take your time. But then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, my patients and their families are suffering, and here I am. I need to get better. I don't really have time to meander or wallow, if you will, in this. I need to get back, and it's kind of weird. I think it's how it's going to define us as a generation of caregivers, of nurses.
I'm wondering if, Joey, you've been able to find moments of solace in all of this. What are you doing to get through?
I mean, I literally have been sitting here filling out thank you cards for people that have sent kind notes and gifts. And one lady painted a picture. She's 80 years old. She lives in Santa Clarita, California. And she said, I can't go out and buy a card, but I painted this watercolor by hand. And it says, for the last responders.